Being an entrepreneur is really difficult. You have way more dark days than happy days. And if you're not driven by this sense of passion, you're not going to get through the dark days. And if all you're thinking about is making a buck at the end of the day, that's probably not going to be enough to get you through really dark days when employees are quitting, you're running out of money, and your customer just fired you.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today we have Tom Simpson from Spokane. Tom, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
And Tom, you are in a number of entrepreneurial and startup ventures and whatnot. I know that you are the CEO of Ignite. Tell me, just kind of for the people listening, bring me into the world of what Tom does, what Tom's passionate about, however you want to frame that.
Okay, well, that's a lot of topics there. I'll try to be brief, but I do wear a number of hats here in our region. One of which you alluded to, which is Ignite, which I'm CEO of, but it's only a two-person organization, so the title CEO is probably a little too over the top. But anyway, what Ignite does is we fund, accelerate, and mentor explosively growing companies in the Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and Sandpoint region. And we have a number of funding mechanisms. We have our own internal capital that we can provide to exclusively growing companies. We have connections with a number of other sources of capital. In terms of accelerating, we put on a number of programs that are intended to help entrepreneurs and startups be successful. And we also have a proprietary group of mentors that we can introduce entrepreneurs to. So that's what we do. I also run what's called the Spokane Angel Alliance, which is a membership group of angel investors. And I've been doing that for nearly 15 years. And over that time frame, the members have put about 70 million into, ironically, about 70 companies. So that's been a very effective mechanisms for emerging companies to secure capital in our region. And thirdly, I run a family of seed investment funds where I have my own pool of capital that I can deploy directly into companies in our region. So those are the three things that I focus on primarily here.
Awesome. So I think it's hilarious. So when we met, we were at the TEDx talks in Spokane. Do you regularly attend those? I assume have you been to them every year?
Well, now I've been invited to attend almost every year. For whatever reason, I've not been able to. So this is the first year I went, but I was really blown away and really enjoyed it, and will be more purposeful about making sure I go and attend in the future.
Yeah, I was same thing for me. I knew that there was a TEDx Spokane, but it was kind of like, I don't know, in my head I was thinking the quality of speakers probably isn't that great or whatever. It's Spokane, who are they bringing in? But I loved, like, I would say maybe one out of the 11 talks, maybe two, were kind of like, it's okay. But the other ones were like, they're really good. So I was very impressed. But Jeff McLaughlin.
Spokane has so many interesting people that are in this community that keep a very quiet presence. I've been here for a long time. I know a lot of people, but I regularly get surprised by someone new that's in here in our community doing amazing things, but very quietly.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. I told Jeff McLaughlin, so he was the speaker that had everyone stand up and play the little game. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, I really resonated with his style. I'm a pretty playful. I like being silly and acting like a kid and just making things fun. So I asked him for some just feedback on a talk that I'm preparing for in a coaching group I'm in over in Coeur d'Alene. And so I met with him and I told him, of all the talks, I probably remember there's 5 things that jump out and that you can remember, because it's hard to remember after 3 hours of information at you. It's like, what are you going to take away from it? I said, but I guarantee you, I am never, ever going to forget that one guy made me stand up and grab Tom's finger behind me, because I was like, and that it's like, it's such a great tool to engage the audience and be like, stand up, turn around, talk to people. And then I also said, told Jeff, like, obviously who knows what happens with you and I meeting, but it's just like crazy to think how often you come into proximity with people, whether you're at a coffee shop or sitting next to them in the theater or you're in line at a grocery store, and when we don't say anything, you know? So I think that's another cool thing to address or to just point out about Jeff's talk in particular. But I'm curious because of you probably have to be one of the most networked individuals in Spokane. And I'm sure that you are frequently, you're very aware of that, I assume. And you're probably on the hunt, just kind of like trying to be open to who might cross paths with. And maybe I'm projecting, but it seems that way from just talking to you and seeing who else you're connected with on LinkedIn. Like we have 15 shared connections or 17 actually on LinkedIn. But yeah, you've got many more on there.
Well, you're making me sound way more important than I believe. But I grew up in Spokane. I've been here for a long time. I love the city. I am in the good fortune that a lot of the things that I do enable me to meet a lot of people. But I enjoy it. I mean, it's one of the most fulfilling things that I do is just meeting people, hearing their ideas, and I love. I love oftentimes, a few years after the fact, people will come up to me and say, "Hey, Tom, you may not know, but when we met a couple years ago, you suggested this or you introduced me to this person, and it's really had an impact on my life." And that's really where I get my most fulfillment. And so, yeah, being kind of, involved in the community that I'm in is very rewarding. My grandmother always said, "Blossom where you're planted." I am aware. It does work both ways, though. I mean, when you have visibility in a small town, you can sometimes be controversial. And I try to be aware that if I may disagree with someone, or particularly if someone's business plan doesn't really excite me, still try to communicate, make comments that are constructive and helpful. If I don't particularly am a believer in a business plan that is presented to me, rather than saying it, offer suggestions or other things, or guide the conversation to, here's what you presented me, but how could it be better? What could we do to really make this interesting? Because a lot of people come to me for funding, and the truth of the matter is, I only fund a small percentage of the people I meet. And if I act like the way the sharks do on Shark Tank, nobody would ever come back to me. But if I can give people value after I meet with them, that doesn't include capital. Hopefully, people will walk away and say, I didn't get an investment, but I did get an introduction. I got these ideas, and walk away feeling good about the meeting.
Yeah. How many other types of groups? Well, just like in the investor startup world, is there any other group in Spokane or Coeur d'Alene that exists that you're not a part of? So you mentioned Ignite. Well, I already forgot the names of the other ones.
Well, there's Ignite, the Spokane Angel Alliance, the Kickstart funds. But there are a number of other entities and organizations that operate in our region that whose objective is to help startups and entrepreneurs.
Okay, because I was going to say one of the things that we were thinking about going to, but we're godparents for some friends of ours baptism in Boise, so we will not be in town for Sparks Weekend. But I was like, I almost requested or had Natalie ask them if they could move the date. I was like, okay, they asked us first. That's fair. We'll keep it. But tell me, and everyone listening, what is Sparks Weekend? It looks like it's 21 days from now on November 17th. Yeah, fill me in on what Sparks Weekend is.
Well, Sparks Weekend is a weekend-long event, 54 hours. And the really objective of Sparks Weekend is to provide the opportunity to anyone that has an idea for a new business that hasn't been incorporated to present their idea and have the opportunity to Then develop a team of people that might be developers or engineers or graphic designers or marketers to spend all weekend refining the idea and to be paired with a mentor. It's such that your idea gets better flushed out. Maybe you build a minimally viable product, maybe you do market research, and then ultimately present to a panel of judges on Sunday night. And then one team will be chosen as the winner, and that team will be eligible for up to $50,000 in investment capital. Now, it's a little Shark Tank-like in that the commitment would be made, but it's still subject to due diligence and negotiation of terms. And the way the weekend is formatted is on Friday night, we start off with a keynote speaker, and this year's keynote speaker is Martin Tobias, who's initially from Seattle, very successful entrepreneur, started a couple of very large companies, moved to Spokane. Now he's a very active angel investor, really worldwide. So he's our keynote speaker to kind of kick off the weekend. But after that, entrepreneurs will have a chance to pitch their idea. And typically we have 30 or 40 people who will stand up and present. You got 1 minute, no slides. And after that is done, the 10 best ideas are self-selected. They're voted on. And everyone gets to vote. And in the room are the people who pitch, the people who want to join a team, and then a lot of people are there just to spectate, to watch the action. And they all get to vote on their favorite idea. And 10 teams are selected. And once those 10 teams are selected, then everyone forms teams around those best ideas. And the people who joined a team might be people who presented but weren't chosen, or there are others in the audience that specifically showed up to join a team. And then they spend all weekend long working, again with a mentor, to refine the idea and then pitch to a panel of judges on Sunday night. But it all takes place at the Catalyst building on the U District campus, a beautiful new building that was just opened up a couple years ago. We feed everybody all weekend with a selection of meals from local restaurants and wineries and breweries. And so it's a fun event. It's a productive event. Looking back over time, it's now called Sparks Weekend. It used to be called Startup Weekend Spokane. We changed the name along the way, but one company here in Spokane called Spiceology, they were one of the first winners of this. We've had a couple of companies go on and present on Shark Tank. So it's really been an effective means for people to present an idea and ultimately take that and turn it into a successful business.
So I'm curious, I didn't realize that when you say like make an MVP, like I'm thinking how much can you actually get done in 40 hours or however many hours it is?
It's really quite amazing what can be done. One of the winners several years ago was a 14-year-old girl by the name of Brooke Martin, and Brooke presented an idea for a interactive dog treat dispenser. I won't go into all the details on how it worked, but over the weekend, so she presented on Friday night. She was one of the 10 winners, and she spent the weekend, and she really built a mock-up of the product that she was able to then present to the panel of judges on Sunday night. But on top of that, you can do market research, you can do competitive analysis, you can maybe build a website, you can do pricing. So it's amazing really what happens over the course of the weekend to bring the idea along. And for those who don't want to present an idea and don't want to join a team, it's still fun just to watch. It's fun to go on Friday night, hear the 30 or 40 ideas presented, and then come back on Sunday night and see how they have been refined and developed over the weekend.
And basically, so these people that like, if I pitched an idea, people are joining because it is my business, it's my idea, but people are just like, I'm just going to give a bunch of energy and effort and whatever resources and knowledge I have to helping this. And then at the end of it, if that person won, all the people that were on the team are just kind of like, hey, good luck. Let me know if you need anything else. But it's not like a business formed right then with your new employees. You're just like,
There's no obligations, and a lot of people that join the teams are just doing it for the fun of the weekend. I mean, it does replicate the life in a startup because you know what, we've got beer and pizza and people are working late and it's frenetic, and it really does replicate what it's like to be in a startup. You have time pressures, you have deadlines, you have objectives, you're excited. And so, a lot of people who are joining the team aren't really doing it because they believe they're going to join the team of a next startup that goes on for the next several years. They like startups, they got a particular skill set, and they just want to, be part of this fun weekend and the energy and the innovation that goes with it. Now, for the founder, for the individual pitching the idea, however, they are doing this because they believe they have an idea. They want to get chosen. They want to develop their idea. They want the $50,000 in capital.
yeah. And then the other part of me is wondering, like, these are assumptions. You can't come in and like pitch, hey, I want to start an HVAC company or some like just a everyday run of the mill thing that's already exists. This is more of like a new product, a new software, a new thing that has never existed before, correct?
Well, I'm going to correct that a little bit. This is the Spokane region. I mean, if we were in a bigger city, you might be able to have more specificity about the criteria for the company. But we're drawing from a smaller region. So frankly, I don't want to discourage anybody with an idea for a new business, and it may be HVAC. Now, one thing that's common, a common saying or quote in my industry is, and it's a little tongue in cheek, but you'll get the essence of it. People will say, frankly, there aren't a lot of new ideas. There's only new execution. So there might be someone out there with an idea for HVAC that is better and newer and better than what's done before, or they have better execution. So I don't want to discourage anybody with a new idea from participating. We've had one individual that routinely shows up at a startup or at Sparks Weekend. His name is John. He's a plumber. He sometimes go by Stinky John, and he's had a plumbing device that he has frequently pitched every year, and occasionally he's been one of the 10 winners.
And so, and then
And he just loves the experience of going through the weekend.
that's awesome.
So I don't want to discourage anybody. They're really owned. The only primary dividing line is if you've already incorporated your business, if you've already formed it, you already have a business license, you're too far along for us.
Yeah. Awesome. And so, yeah, so Sparks Weekend, that's exciting. What else, as far as like entrepreneurship in Spokane and North Idaho, what is like, you said at the beginning, or maybe I read this on your bio, but obviously I believe this as well, that like entrepreneurship is like one of the core building blocks for like a growing and prosperous community, right? If you don't have jobs and businesses that are starting up, your community can only grow so much. I mean, the digital world that we live in helps to some degree, but you still need healthy, vibrant businesses to employ people that want to move here. So tell me a little bit about like what has been exciting or surprised you about like in the last 15, 20 years. I can't remember how long you said you've been doing this, but how has things evolved and what has been really exciting to see?
You're dead on. I mean, entrepreneurship and innovation is critical to the vitality of any region. Think of it as a portfolio. Every region has its cash cows, its successful businesses that have been around for a number of years. But you need to have your rising stars too, the companies that over time are going to take that position and be the new leaders. And sometimes it's challenging to educate a community on the importance of having that portfolio, of having the rising stars. Because we oftentimes people focus too much on the established businesses and believe that they will be there forever. But it's the real innovative cities realize you need to have a complete portfolio. In terms of, and again, I have been doing this for a while. I grew up in Spokane, but I spent a number of years in Seattle on the East Coast and came back here when what I used to often say was a couple of years ago, but now it's been a long time. I came back to Spokane in 1895. Spokane's changed a lot since I came back. And I probably won't go over the farther out history, but it's really changed a lot in the last 3 years. The pandemic has been really, really good to Spokane for two reasons. One, a lot of people who, because of the pandemic, were afforded the opportunity to work wherever they wanted to because remote work was embraced. For lifestyle reasons, chose Spokane, and they left places like Seattle or the Bay Area or other cities and came to Spokane. And again, they've moved. Many people have moved in here quite quietly, but I meet them because they want to become angel investors, they want to become mentors, they want to serve on boards. So we've had all this influx of incredible talent into this community that has helped our startup community. On the flip side, one of the common complaints about companies in Spokane is, hey, can you really build a team? Can you really hire people? Can you find the right talent? And frankly, that was somewhat of a legitimate concern. But now, again, because remote work has been embraced, companies in Spokane now can recruit worldwide for people. And a number of my companies now have people that are working for them, but they're based all around the world. So the pandemic has really changed the dynamics of Spokane in a very, very positive way. And I'm seeing that really kind of in the increase in the quality and the number of new opportunities that I'm evaluating.
So I'm curious, from seeing so many deals, what is I don't know if you have like the top 3 list of the pitfalls, but like, of all the businesses that you've invested in, you said that the one group has invested in 70. You probably have another, other ones that you've mentored or whatever. You've seen a lot of startups, and I don't even remember the statistic. It's like 95% or some ridiculously high number of startups close after a couple of years, right? What is the reason that you think businesses fail? And I guess I'm also assuming that you're probably trying to filter those so that you're picking the ones that are less likely to fail. But even those, I would assume, still fail at a high rate.
Well, that's a topic for probably a 5-hour podcast. There's a lot of variables in why companies either succeed or fail. I think most people in my business will say it ultimately comes down to the company's culture. And assuming the idea was only reasonable and that the market was only reasonable, if you've got a culture of tenacity and creativity and respect for the team, and you make some wise decisions, your odds of success are better. They're never guaranteed, but you really look for culture where everyone feels empowered to show up every day and be excited and to work hard and to think creatively. So culture is really, if you're going to pick one variable. Now, the next variable I would probably say too is budgeting carefully for cash. A lot of companies go out of business because they ran out of cash. And entrepreneurs always believe things are going to happen faster than they often do. And they believe funding sources are going to be there. But there's a lot of forces in the market that result in timing being longer than people expected. And then we have market cycles where cash is not as prevalent as it might have been. We're in one right now. In 2021, it was very easy to raise capital. I mean, companies were going public, people were doing SPACs, venture capitals were writing checks frequently. It's completely different now than it was in 2021. So I would say, and this is one thing I'm advising a lot of my companies is, budget very carefully. If you've got some cash, make it, last as long as possible. Build cushion in there. So I would say the two things that, enhance the probability of success is really a very thoughtful culture and prudence on expending the capital that you've raised.
That's good. I'm wondering for the culture piece, that obviously, I mean, my experience is that is directly a result of the founder. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, the founder or the founders. I mean, it's the individuals who started the company and what is their DNA, what's their philosophy, what drives them, how do they communicate, are they honest, but the imprint. It's like parents. I mean, it's a genetic influence that founders have on their team.
Because I don't know how far along these companies that you're investing in are, but obviously if you've got a 50-person company, you can kind of walk into the office and feel like what's the vibe, talk to people, and that would be an easy way to audit. How do you audit a culture of one person or two people or five or whatever? Because you're really, like, I agree completely that the culture is the thing, but what are you doing to analyze the person who's going to make the culture to see if they have what it takes, or can you coach them or whatever?
It's just having been around a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of startups. It's a gut feeling. Um, I guess the feeling's no different than it might be. Let's say you walk into a bar, um, and you might meet a couple of people, and your first impression may be, hey, I don't really like that person, or hey, I really like that person. And if I were to ask you why you made those observations, it would be a subjective response customized to who you are and the type of friends you've had in your past. And that's, it's really, for me, it was all, I always, for me, it was called the Robin test. And my mom's name was Robin. And my mom knew nothing about business, and capitalism bored her. But she was a very good read of people. And so I always would envision, before I invest in a company, and I still do, an imaginary dinner with my mom and the founders. And I probably don't say anything during the dinner. My mom talks and they talk. And after dinner, I just ask my mom, did you like those people? And if in my mind she says yes, it passes the Robin test.
That's awesome. So I mean, that makes sense. This is making me think of this. I made a connection this summer through a friend and it's this guy, I won't say his name or his business, but he's the managing partner of a hedge fund in New York that has like 3.5 billion under management right now. So he's built this thing he and his partner from scratch, basically. And I'm talking to this guy who he has a low profile, you wouldn't know who he is, but he was saying that they basically invest in like 10 companies at a time, and they're all public companies. And the way that they decide to invest is 100% on the management team. That's like one of the largest factors. He's like, obviously there's like, what's the product, whatever, but they basically look, the classic jockey or the horse. They go and they do personality assessments, interviews, past history, and their only thing is, like, even if the business is struggling right now, is their team like a team of all-stars? And do we believe that they can figure it out? Because you could also be on the flip side, the team's crushing it right now, But next year, these unforeseen circumstances are going to wipe out their, their revenue. And do they have the agility and the capacity to pivot and still be successful? And they've done this over the last, 20 years, and he's been massively successful. And it's all because of finding the people.
No, the one thing I would add though is where I do filter people out. One way I can a easier way to filter people out is um, oftentimes. Well, I one of the first questions I ask people is, why are you meeting me? Why are you here? Why are you starting this company? And I try to elicit some huge passion they have for the product or service that they've come up with. And I want to see the same passion that perhaps Howard Schultz had when he started Starbucks, when Phil Knight had when he started Nike, when Bill Gates had when he started Microsoft. Those individuals had just this crazy passion for a product or an idea, and that's what drove them. The prospect of becoming a multi-billionaire wasn't one of them. They just loved their product or service. So I try to flush that out because being an entrepreneur is really difficult. You have way more dark days than happy days. And if you're not driven by this sense of passion, you're not going to get through the dark days. And if all you're thinking about is making a buck at the end of the day, that's probably not going to be enough to get you through really dark days when employees are quitting, you're running out of money, and your customer just fired you.
Mm, that's good. Yeah. I always wonder, like, the passion, like you just mentioned, these very like celebrity level founders, and how often or how many days did they have the passionate days? Obviously, like, if you're going to go pitch and get some money, you better have gone for the run, feel good, like you want to make sure that you're showing up in the right way, but also like just the like the people that the stuff that you're putting into your head, the way you think, all that stuff, just your mindset is so critical to get other people to buy into the vision. Um, yeah. So what else, like, entrepreneurially? I guess I have one. This is another thing that's coming to mind. When a business is considering, or when would you say that a business should or shouldn't look for investment capital? Because what's the yeah? I guess I'm curious if you have any um, litmus tests on kind of like, if you meet these criteria, you might look for it. If you meet these, you might not, or you don't meet these, you probably need to do something without investment yet, or whatever.
Well, sometimes you don't. Companies don't have a choice. I mean, I guess I might refine your question not to be when, but how much and how to structure it. I mean, some companies may not have friends and family or their own personal resources, and to get started, they just have to raise money. Um, so the question is not so much when, but how much and from whom. Um, I always tell companies that if you're for your first capital raise, um, make that amount that you need to raise an amount that is probably reasonably attained based on the nature of your idea and your background. Now, to put some meat on that, if Jeff Bezos wanted to go out and raise money tomorrow, he could probably raise $1 billion in 2 days. Now, if some student from Gonzaga University with no background had an idea for a new business, he couldn't go out and say, "Hey, I need to raise $1 billion," because it's unlikely. So he's got to pick a number that is probably reasonable for someone at that stage. And I don't know if that's 250,000, if it's 100,000 or 500, but it's certainly not $3 or $5 million. So he's got to kind of right size his plan and his expectations for an amount that someone with that background could reasonably choose. Now, back to your HVAC thing. If this Gonzaga student had an idea for AI, which is super hot right now, versus maybe an HVAC company. So the person's got to choose an amount of money that is reasonable to be able to attract based on who they are, their background, and what the product is. So you got to kind of scale your. Now, if you perform and you deliver in the next 12 or 18 months, you'll have more traction, you'll have more credibility, and then you might be able to raise more. So I advise people raise a reasonable amount and do it so that you can last 12 to 18 months, such that you don't run out of money in 3 months and have to go back to the coffers. And give yourself enough time to hit some milestones to gain credibility to go out and raise that next round. Or come up with a business model that, you know what, the business model is so clever that you don't need to raise a lot of capital. Now, I know that doesn't happen a lot, but people often applaud the companies that just raised, a lot of money in a Series A. But there are companies that go out there and prosper and succeed without having raised a whole lot of money. So the venture world doesn't really teach you that, but I always try to inspire people to think as creatively as they can in terms of their business model to raise a nominal amount of money and still be successful.
Right. What is I'm sure that they're generally, if you're going to raise 10 grand, what is the value of the business for that? Like, what's the ratio of, like, if it's like,
it's so hard. It's so hard. I mean, it's no, if you have just I'll probably get myself in trouble. It's just all over the map. It just depends on so many different variables about the size of your market, what your background is, the how if the markets are effervescent or if they're in a bear market. A startup company can be valued anywhere between a brand new idea could be anywhere from $500,000 up to $10 million in terms of valuation.
and then so maybe that's the question of the valuation. What percent of the valuation do investors typically, what are you looking for as like an ROI of like, I'm going to invest 10,000 for 10% of what size business? And now a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1% to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get one person or two people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3% and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews, and these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode.
Let's put the percentages aside. People like me, early stage investors and early stage startups typically want to be able to get 10 times their money. So if I put $1 in a business, I am hopeful, and hopeful is probably the right word, even though hope's not a strategy. But as you alluded to earlier, a lot of these don't work out. But I want to see a reasonable path to getting 10 times my money in 5 to 7 years.
Got it. And then you're doing that with, and if this is just what I've heard from other people, they're doing that with 5 businesses, 10 businesses at a time. So you take a fund, you find your horses that you're betting on, you divvy up the money, whatever percent, 40% or 60% fail, and a couple of them are huge, and you still end up netting in that, right?
In my venture funds, I try to build a portfolio between 15 to 20 companies. So that gives me a higher, I mean, I once read a statistic that, um, what was it? 90% of the investment returns in a venture fund come from 67% of the investments. So that implies that it's really a couple that are driving the returns. So if I have a portfolio of 15 to 20, that gives me, hopefully higher assurance that I've got, 2 to 4 winners in there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, what else? What else is on your mind about entrepreneurship or angel investing, whatever? It looks like we got about maybe 5 minutes left before I head to my wrap up questions.
Well, what else is on my mind? I sincerely believe that this region is an ideal place for people to start and grow a business. You can find the talent. It provides a wonderful lifestyle for those that are otherwise super hardworking and tenacious developers or anybody on your team. Um, Living in this region and going to the lakes, the golf courses, the mountains, or whatever you enjoy doing, is an extra way to be able to compete for really good talent. Large companies, you look at the Googles and the Microsofts and all those, how do they compete for talent? They compete based on base salary, a bonus, and stock options. One thing, but those companies are kind of based in Seattle and the Bay Area. Companies here now can compete on one more plane. This amazing lifestyle we have. So I think this region is a wonderful place to grow a company. You can find the talent. You can reward your employees by the advantages and the attributes of our region. A lot of investors are beginning to look outside of mainstream areas for opportunities. One of the companies I'm involved with here in Spokane called Treasury 4 just attracted $20 million from a very well-known venture fund by the name of Westcap. So I'm very, bullish on the opportunities and the prospects for companies to start here in Spokane. And when I say Spokane, though, I also mean Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint. I kind of view this as 31 flavors of ice cream. It's a whole region. And some people might like Coeur d'Alene over Sandpoint. Some people might like Spokane over Sandpoint or Coeur d'Alene. But this region here, is ideal, and you can pick wherever within the region to headquarter. I just had another great example, a company out of Seattle that was spun out of a very prominent accelerator in Seattle by the name of Pioneer Square Labs. The company's name is SecureSave. I was actually an early investor in that company, and about a year ago, the CEO and the founder called me up and said, "Guess what, Tom? I'm moving from Seattle to Spokane." And so I'm just seeing, so it's not just me saying this, I'm really seeing demonstrable evidence of it.
That's awesome. So yeah, let's move into the book recommendations.
Book recommendations. Well, one of my, I sometimes teach at Gonzaga, and one book I love to have my students read is Zero to One. And it was written by, I'm spacing on the name right now,
Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel, thank you. One of the early investors in Facebook and has several startups to his name. But it's a great book. It's a short read. You can read it in an hour or two, but a lot of great pillars of wisdom about what a truly successful startup needs to have. Another one of my favorite books is Shoe Dog. It's a book that Phil Knight wrote all about his journey and starting Nike, and just one of those can't put down books. And that's an example of an individual who had culture. From the beginning of that culture, he just drove in the values, the guiding principles of that business. And he was just tenacious and creative and wouldn't take no. The third book, Boys in the Boat, which is kind of almost a local story. It's about the 1933 rowing team at the University of Washington. One of the main characters, George Rance, actually lived in Spokane for a while. It's being turned into a movie, but just a great story again. And that one's another feature of culture and success and management is grit, just grit. And the Boys in the Boat just reflected grit, just hardworking young men that just came together in a boat and succeeded. So those are kind of the three books that I've read over the years and have really enjoyed and taken a lot out of, particularly as it relates to entrepreneurship. I often tell people that one investment areas I don't make is into films. But we know we all break our own rules every once in a while, right? Well, I once invested in a movie called Folk Hero and Funny Guy. A great movie. It's a tremendous movie. It made it to the Tribeca Film Festival, but for whatever reason, it didn't have a whole lot of box office success. But I'm one of the executive producers of the movie. I still watch it. I love it. Goldie Hawn's son is in it, and so this is my favorite movie. I didn't make any money off of it, but it's a great watch.
That's awesome. And this was it produced in Spokane?
No, it was actually produced in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
But I was introduced to the opportunity for someone who grew up in the region, though.
Oh, that's awesome. I back in my I have like an interesting path, but I had a marketing or media company, and we made a documentary on Scotty Smiley. I'm sure you know him. When he did the Iron Man. And so that was 2017 or something. Anyways, the making a movie is like, there's so many, talk about like starting a business, and then a movie is like 10 times harder to get it quote unquote successful. Plus you've got, the creative aspect, which is huge variables, but yeah, we had it on. The funny thing about the movie, it's called Beat Feet, and it was on Amazon Prime forever. We got it on there, and it made like a total of 37 cents a day or something, because they pay you based on minutes watched. But anyways, what happened was it was with this old company, and I never checked the email that I had made the Amazon account with, and there were some laws that changed in Europe for the way they taxes or something. I don't know. And they had sent notices to all the accounts to like update your European like tax credentials or something. And I didn't see this until the deadline had passed. So then they took the movie off Amazon Prime, and they're like, I'm like blacklisted, so I can't get the movie on Amazon Prime again. So now it just exists on YouTube. But it is on YouTube. And anyways, it's just like one of those things where like such a stupid mistake that we spent so many, like we had a team, we hired like musicians and stuff, and Coach K that narrated it. It was this work of art that, ended up like, again, I literally, I think it was about a month ago, after being super frustrated because people had asked me about where it went. I just I dug open a hard drive and uploaded the video to YouTube. So it's just, at least it can be seen somewhere. But I'm not making my 37 cents a day anymore, which is really, really hard. Anyways, Tom, thank you so much for your generosity. If someone wants to get in touch, what is your preferred method that they do that?
Email, and that's Tom, Tom, at nwva.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Tom. I know that we'll be seeing you around. And for those of you that are interested in the Sparks Weekend, well, I guess depending on when this gets published, I'm going to try and have my editors put this to the front of the line. So maybe there's one or two people that are listening to this before Sparks Weekend and are inspired to go to that event. But thank you so much again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.